He has a very distinguished career as a peace activist, anti-war, anti-nuclear armaments advocate. Mr. Reiner Braun is former president and executive director of the highly respected Berlin-based International Peace Bureau. The International Peace Bureau has won Nobel Peace Prize for its peace advocacies. Sir, welcome back to Pandesal Forum.
My first point is that we are living in the most dangerous times since 1945. Dangerous means that we are never so nearby to a third world war than we are now. We have three big war situations in the world which could lead to a nuclear weapons war which will destroy the whole planet. This is first the war in Ukraine with a dynamic of escalation. The second, I call it the conflict in West Asia, which not only includes the horrible attacks against the Palestinians, but includes also the question of Iran. And third, everything which could and will happen in the South China Sea. This is the most dangerous situation, and Trump is enlarging and deepening the conflicts in these regions. I will come back to this a little bit later. The second point, and maybe this is a little bit in contradiction to the first point, is that we are living in a rapidly changing world. The changes of the world were never since 1945 and 1990 so quick as today. This means the old historically powers of the world, the so-called Western or industrial countries, are losing their main power in the world, and we have a new power structure with new powers growing up, becoming bigger and stronger. This is above all China, and secondly, definitely India. But never forget Brazil and other Asian countries. So we have historically, for the first time since many, many years, since in the minimum 200 or 300 years, a shift of the power structure to Asia. This is historically new. And one background of all these conflicts is that, to say it in easy words, the old powers don't want to give up their hegemony, and the new powers want to have a more equal and more peace-oriented world. And this is a background of the confrontation we are seeing in the world, and Trump is deepening all these conflicts. Let me say some words to Trump. I will not speak about the lying boy. I will not speak about the racist, which is crucial and, from the human point of view, never acceptable. I will speak about his role in the world. What does he want? Make America great again. What does this mean? It's simple. It means America should be the superpower in the world, and all other countries should follow the rules of the United States of America. First, I have to say, he always is speaking about make America great. But America is much more than the United States of America. I think we have to teach him the landscape. And that's the first point. The second point, which is much more important, is to become the superpower of the world means that he wants to dictate the rules of ruling the international relations. To say that a simple example, his relation to Colombia last night. To say, okay, you're a poor country, I don't care about it. When you don't accept my refugees, I stop the trade with you. I kill you, economically. This is the behavior of the old colonial style to which he wants to come back. That is the background, what he is doing. And interestingly, he is not only doing it, which was historically the role of the United States of Europe, with the global south, like Colombia or like Panama. Panama Canal back to me. Is this the canal of the United States? I don't believe so. But he's also doing this with his allies. Greenland. You know, if I'm a friend of Greenland independent or Greenland to Denmark, this is for me an open question, historically and actual. But Greenland is never a part of the United States of America. Why he wants to have Greenland? And this shows the background of his imperial behavior. He wants to have it because Greenland, losing ice under the climate change condition, is a country with rich resources, which the United States want to steal. Natural resources, energy resources, the so-called using resources for the new technologies, this is what he wants to have. And the second, look to the strategic position of Greenland. When the North route in the Arctic will be free, then it's the direct way between Russia and the United States, between Europe and the United States, and he wants to control these ways, these pathways. This is Trump. Trump means imperial, or when you want to use a traditional left word, imperialistic politics to rule the world. That is what he wants. Does this mean he could not make peace? He could. When the interest of the United States to have peace is bigger than to have conflict. Look to Afghanistan. After 20 years, they could escape. Look to Iraq. When they see no chance to get it, they lost. They have gone. And the same is with Ukraine. The expenses for the Ukraine are becoming too high in relations to the successes which he could get. And that means, okay, then we try to make peace in Zelensky. We don't care about him. He could go wherever he wants, to his villa at the Geneva Lake or whatever. So he could make peace in this relation, but this is not a justice peace in a just world. It is an imperial peace for dominating the whole world and the rules of the world. This we have also to see when we are discussing about Ukraine, and I'm very open to answer questions to Ukrainian war. 2 points maybe shortly. First point is Ukraine will lose the war. They have no chance because of the manpower. Russia has 3 or 4 times more manpower, more technological power, and an end. And Ukraine is economically and by human beings absolutely at the end. The soldiers are leaving the army. We have about 6 million Ukrainian people living abroad. We know that the inhabitants of the Ukrainians from 1991 to today are reduced from 51 million to 32 million. So this is a country which is economically, politically, and by the horrible corruption really at the end. And the people are notice this, and I think we will come to a peace process during the year. It will be not a peace process in the sense of making just peace, but hopefully it will be a process which stops the killing and the murdering and the destroying of the country. Can you imagine how to live now in a destroyed country when there are 30 degrees minus, not plus, and there is no hot water, there is no warm heating? Can you imagine these living conditions? So I hope that we will come to a process of peace in these countries. Second point is, but I would like to mention, we cannot speak only about war and peace. We have to see the second huge challenge of the world, which also destroy the background of the living conditions in the world. This is the climate change. I think I have your country not to say anything about climate change. You know the reality of climate change, and this will be even more brutal. And so it is totally unacceptable that Trump get rid of the Paris Agreement and left it. This is really against humanity and a common human life. Saying this, I have to say that our planet is too small for the confrontation which we are seeing on the planet, in Europe, but also in Asia. The confrontation between China and other countries are not acceptable, because confrontation in the world means that we will not solve the global problems of the world. The global problems we can only solve by cooperation. Can you imagine that we will solve any of the climate change problems when we are staying with the armies feet by feet to prepare a war? This will not happen. Can you imagine that we are solving the problems of diversity, the problems of poverty, when we are in a world of confrontation? And the second, for me, really very important point is we need the money which we are giving for military purposes, for military budgets all over the world, for ecological and social developments. We are spending more than 2.5 trillion US dollar per year for military purposes. The climate fund of the UN should have 100 billion, and it's now in the fund are 37 billion. The money must come from the military expenditure. We need the money for the development. How we should pay, how we should overcome the poverty, how we should overcome and develop resilience against climate change, how we can develop an infrastructure in the world without using the money from the military budgets all over the world. And let me say, underline this. You know, always it's said the United States is spending 890 or 900 billion for military purposes. But this is not true. They are spending in reality 1.5 trillion per year for military purposes. Because when they are announcing the military budget, these exclude everything what they are spending for the nuclear weapons. Because the nuclear weapons money is in the energy budget. And this does not include the pensions and the healthcare systems and the healthcare development for their soldiers. This is included in the so-called state pension funds. But this is it is military money. So when you put everything together, the US is spending 1.5 trillion per year for military purposes. And you know, the same tricks are done by other countries. So in reality, the military budgets are much, much higher than these 2.5 trillion I mentioned in the beginning. Saying some words, because I think you expect this from me, to Europe. You know, there was an announcement in the 80s in the US tourist industry which said, come to Europe so long it exists. It was at that time when the US wanted to send the Pershing II and cruise missiles to Europe. Now I would say, come to Europe so long it is possible and acceptable to visit it. Europe is in a deep, deep economical, political, ethical crisis. The old traditional system of Europe, based on trade and based on taking the money from the colonial countries, comes to an end and is over. And there is no any development in Europe for redevelop the infrastructure, the economic structure, and the ecological future for Europe. Europe believes that at the side of the United States, they could continue their traditional market economy plundering the global south. But this will not any longer work. And this is the deep background of the crisis in Europe. You can see this by the car production. You know, we are producing cars, good cars, I think, but others are producing better cars now. The Chinese, the Japanese, the Koreans, and they are cheaper and even better. Why people should buy European cars? No sense. And instead of transforming our car system to a new kind of more ecologically oriented cars using for the people, we are only developing cars which are highly expensive and only for the political elites. This means our car production will go down. We will have 100,000 of unemployed people which have to leave the car industry because there is no jobs any longer. And you can continue this for all kinds of other industry. So Europe, and the background of this crisis is that Europe gave up the small steps for more independence and is now only following the rules of the United States. Why? Because they believe that they could recover and recreate the old traditional system at the side of the United States, not as an equal partner of the global south and also of Russia. So, and this is the background which underlines the crisis. To say it in a very simple example, you know, even in the deepest time of the Cold War, we were exporting gas and oil from Russia. Cheap gas and cheap oil. It always worked. It could happen in the world, whatever happened, the gas and oil production and the gas and oil trade between Europe and Russia and former time Soviet Union was working. Now, we stopped it immediately. And instead of this, we were buying the ecological disastrous 7 times more expensive fracking gas and oil from the United States. Economically, everyone who has a business was saying, totally stupid. But we were doing it. And what does this mean? The costs of oil productions in Europe were going up. And why people should in the world buy more expensive goods from Europe when they could get cheaper goods from other parts of the world? People are not stupid. So that is the end. That's deepening the crisis in Europe. But it is homemade crisis by a wrong geostrategic position of the European elites. And this is not only the question that they believe that they are at the side of the United States could win, but I think is an illusion. The second point is, we don't have any longer, and it reduced since the financial crisis 2008 and 2009 dramatically, we don't have an independent European industry. Part of all big European companies are the investments and other funds from the United States. Above all, BlackRock and Vanguard and others. So they are influenced in the day-to-day policy, the big European companies, including Volkswagen, including the chemical industry, including Mercedes and BMW. So this means we have deep connections, but under the leadership of the United States, even of the European industry. So the European industry, even the industries which was very profitable about many, many years, is not any longer really independent. BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street Corporation, I will not say are ruling, but they have a very important role to say by the development of this industry. And this is historically an absolutely new situation. And this shows that we have now this new Western bloc trying to be the hegemon on the world. Maybe at the end I would like to say, can they win? Can Trump win? Yes, he can have successes. I'm quite sure that he will. I think he will not occupy Greenland, but against countries of the global south, he can have successes. Even, I'm not so sure if he cannot be successful in the West Asia case. Even when I cannot imagine the victims of the Palestinian people again have to leave the Gaza area and to go to Egypt and to Jordan. But maybe at the end, he will be successful. But this does never mean that this will be a peace process for the region. Peace could never happen when you make millions of people to refugees. Never. But at the end, he cannot win. Why? The power structure of the world has changed. To say the two very easy examples, when you are looking to the 10 biggest harbors of the world. 7 of the 10 biggest harbors of the world are in China, not any longer in one of these Western countries. When you are looking to the students which are finishing natural scientists, the students of the BRICS country which are finishing these educations are 7 times higher than the students which are finishing these educations in the United States and in Europe. These are simple examples. When you are looking to the GDP, you can today see, and now it is the question which figures you are using, that China is number 1 or number 2, but India is now becoming number 4 or number 5. It depends which quoting system you are using. And Brazil is number 6, 7, or 8. And then there comes Indonesia with number 9 and 10, and many other of the global south countries. The power structure, the structure of producing, has dramatically changed from the Western countries to the global south. The GDP of the BRICS countries is higher than the GDP of the G7. And when you are looking to the growing figures, the GDP in Europe is growing between 0 and 1%, in the United States between 1 and 2%, in many other countries of the global south between 5 or 4.5 and 7 or 8%. So this is a dramatically change of the power structure in the world. This is the economic background of these changes. And the political is, with the construction of the BRICS country, the global south is awakened, and the global south voices are always heard. And you cannot avoid to listen to the global south voices. And this is a new situation of the world. And let me say 2 sentences to BRICS. BRICS is not revolutionary. BRICS is not the new just world. But BRICS is a huge step for a more multipolar world in the direction of more peace. And the BRICS countries, united in many questions, developing an independent and alternative economic system to the Western system by SWIFT, by de-dollarization, by new trade agreements on local financial basis. These are really, and by new contracts, avoiding the mafia methods of International Investment Fund and World Bank. They are really developing a new system which creates hope and successes for many, many people in the world. This is the huge advantage of BRICS. And I was here on vacation when Indonesia joined BRICS. I think it is a tremendously important step that one of the biggest countries of Asia were joining BRICS. And BRICS is not only the BRICS plus countries, it is also the BRICS partnerships with more than 10 important countries in the world. This is the start point of a new structure which will definitely avoid that Trump at the end can win. So the only deep problem with Trump is that he believes, when he will not win, that he is going to a third world war. This is the huge danger. And to escape this, and we need, and you know, I'm one of maybe the leading figures, we need the international peace movement, their actions, and they are absolutely needed, maybe even more than ever, to avoid that the way out of these crises is the way to a global war, which really will destroy the whole planet. So we have a chance for a new development in the world, going through many, many crises, many, many difficult situations. And again, to go to these crises does not mean that at the end we will have the blue heaven. It does not mean that we will have a society maybe we all would love. but it means that a door will open for a new development in a little bit more peaceful future. That is the challenge we are facing, and the elections and the beginning of the power of Trump shows us that we have to do a lot to develop this way for opening to a little bit more peaceful future. Thank you.